So we have a problem. These reluctant messianics, the Israeli left, they listen to the propaganda of the world. The enemy is a freedom fighter. Jews are occupiers of their own land. They are trapped in their own moral dilemma, trapped in their own guilt. And rather than move out to Uganda, they sit and make traps for the rest of us. These word traps. Yes. A Kahanist, a Bibist, messianic, racist. You think you're arguing these terms, but you've already lost. You've fallen into the word trap, the trap of the narrative. In politics, in government, in culture, they define or misdefine the words. And when you use those words, you're forced to defend yourself on their terms. So even if you think you've won, you've lost. You've fallen into the trap. And the definitions that they created have now stuck. It's the conceptia, it's the thought police, it's the deep state, using these fake terms to indoctrinate what they call useful idiots, to regurgitate nonsense, propaganda, lies, fake news, over and over, in the news, on Twitter, YouTube, in the universities, and at your Shabbat table. That's the useful part. They spread it. And they don't bother to learn any better. They don't bother to learn the truth. So that's your idiot part. Pardon language. They believe it. They drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. And they will defend it. They'll defend it with emunah shlema. So let's go over some of these word traps. We'll start with the courts. If you want for your judges to be elected, as they are in the United States, or if you want for your judges to be chosen by elected officials, as is the case with the United States Supreme Court, in Israel you're anti-democratic. If you want for the Knesset, the representative of the people, to carry out the people's will, to choose who will carry out those policies, and to change the heads of agencies and bureaucracies, as Trump is doing right now, and as every president before him has done, in Israel you are political. Now, when it comes to the courts, we can go on and on with such language because they've been doing it since 1992. They have given us and fed us intentionally these misapplied terms. Branches of government, separation of powers, checks and balances, reasonableness. But we'll save those for another time for the report on judicial reform. And in defense, if you want a strong, aggressive war, a war against a jihadist enemy that will only understand strong actions, an enemy that has been indoctrinated to kill you, and openly says it, it's in their charters, it's in their speeches, an enemy that believes you stole their land and uses religion as a justification to get it back. In Israel, that makes you racist, a Jewish supremacist. Do you fight the Druze? Do you fight the Bedouins? Do you fight the Christian Arabs, the Gulf Arabs? An Indonesian Muslim? No, of course not. But they still call you a racist. And if you claim that Jews should live in Judea, or that Yehudim come from Yehuda, then you're messianic. But if you think about it, in Israel, a Jew who claims he's anti-Zionist is still messianic. Why? Because if you think Jews do not have a valid claim to the land, then you should have left a long time ago. As a land thief, you would have moved to Uganda, to the Pale Settlement, to Siberia, to the Americas. But your parents rejected those ideas, and you chose and choose to live in Yafo. You just call it Tel Aviv. So we're all messianics, maybe reluctantly, but still messianics. So we have a problem. These reluctant messianics, what some may call the Israeli left, aren't running to Uganda. They remain. And they remain filled with guilt. And they remain with a moral dilemma. They listen to the propaganda of the world. And they wonder to themselves, and even wonder out loud, whether Jews are occupiers of their own land. And they wonder whether the enemy is a freedom fighter. That's the core of the conceptia. They are trapped in their own moral dilemma, trapped in their own guilt. And rather than move out to Uganda, they sit and make traps for the rest of us. These word traps. As if giving the Palestinian Arab land is enough. As if giving the Palestinian Arab free education is enough. As if giving the Palestinian Arab work permits is enough. They think you stole their land. They think you benefit off their cheap labor. Imagine, I come to your house, I go to your garage and I steal your car. And you get upset. You say, hey, you stole my car. And I say, wait, relax. We could work out a deal. I'll let you borrow the car. You could borrow the car on Monday and Thursday. And you say, it's my car. Give it back. I say, fine. I'm Shomer Shabbat. Take it on Saturday. You get even more upset. And as if that's not enough, I go and I tell the whole world. I tell the world, look what a nice guy I am. Look how flexible I am. I'm willing to share the car. Now, the actual truth on this point is irrelevant. This is what they think. This is what they were taught. This is their religious fight. This is their dream. And this dream is reinforced every time we, Israel, allow in American and European money. So it's not going away with free social services, port in Gaza, or work permits. In fact, they see those as guilt. They see those as proof of your theft. If it was yours, you wouldn't offer any of it. Go ask Melech Shlomo, King Solomon. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a headache. It makes no sense. It's not solving the underlying issue. So back to our reluctant messianics, trapped in their own guilt, trapped in their own moral dilemma, and setting word traps for the rest of us, thinking they're fooling the world. That's why we have an army that defines itself as a defense force. Go, look up defense force on Wikipedia. It's a bunch of small countries, mostly islands, and Israel. You think if you keep saying defense, the world won't know that Israel has expanded its territory in every direction? That defensive troops have entered every country around us for the last 80 years? Say the truth. Because Israel is surrounded by hostile neighbors, Israel has an army, an aggressive army, an offensive army, a powerful army, and don't be afraid to use it. But instead, we have word traps that our defense forces have a primary goal, not of killing enemies and not of retrieving hostages, but of morality and transparency. And that's why they don't remove openly hostile press, openly hostile NGOs, openly hostile UN. That's why the IDF spokesperson has to make hourly press conferences to the whole world, press conferences in English, to justify and to rationalize and to apologize for every Israeli military action. That's why instead of a military siege to return our own hostages, we resorted to counting calories. Instead of military goals of intimidation and psyops and fear, they tell the whole world what they're up to, where they're going next, where they're going to attack, when. And the whole world chimes in, just like in Rafah. What's next? A WhatsApp poll? It's why Israel changes its rules of engagement on armed Palestinians during Ramadan. You were attacked. You weren't attacked because it was the 7th of October. You were attacked because it was Simchat Torah. You were attacked because it was Shabbat. To the enemy, this fake respect is a sign of weakness. It's a sign that your claims to the land are false. You're not garnering goodwill from the enemy, the greater Muslim world, or even the rest of the world, which sees you as baby killers anyway. And in the end, all these word traps, all to appease the guilt and moral dilemma of the reluctant messianic, what does all this do? It equalizes the battlefield, because our enemy, who is savvy and sneaky and masterful at manipulating us through the West that we continue to adore knows all of this. No one is fooled. And that's why one of the strongest armies in the world can't defeat bands of terrorists. Terrorists trapped in an isolated enclave. Terrorists without a single tank or plane. Terrorists who can't even control their own resources, their own water, their own gas, or their own electric. And it's all because we have shifted the definition of winning. We've shifted it from the battlefield to the field of Western opinion. A heavy-handed war against a jihadist and showing a moral face to the West are contrary goals. And when we try to do them both at the same time, we lose both. To contrast, listen to the new incoming American ambassador to Israel. He calls out all these word traps and refuses to use them. West Bank, settlers, occupation. Nonsense! Yehudan Shomron, Israelis, indigenous Jews. That's it. So when the reluctant Messianic calls someone a Kahanist, he's not referring to fighting for the Jews of the Soviet Union. He's not referring to Aliyah or Kiruv. He's setting up a word trap for you, a trap of bigotry, a trap of hatred, a trap of violence. The reality is irrelevant because you've entered his narrative. Now, the Bibist will follow Netanyahu regardless. He can see losses and he'll call them victories because he's following his leader. He'll say it would have been worse with someone else. He might be right, but he'll follow him either way. The Trumpist, when he doesn't know what to do, he'll wait to be told, like with the COVID vaccine. His leader is around for guidance, for the future, for the unknown. But with Rav Kahana, what are his thoughts on COVID? Oslo, today's Iran. We can guess, but we don't know. There remain self-proclaimed Kahanists in the United States and in Canada. And Rav Kahana proclaimed, half a century ago, that Jews should leave the Galut. So, it's up to interpretation. Now, Rav Kahana was assassinated 35 years ago by a Palestinian Arab in New York. So you could say Kach, and you could say Kahani Chai, but those are ideas. It's not possible to follow him blindly. It's not possible to know his opinions on new topics. You can't be a Kahanist in the same way that you could be a Bibist, or that you could be a Trumpist. The term Kahanist only exists as a word trap now, a word trap to be used against you. So when you start defending it, you've already lost. And what's the irony here? You don't even need Rav Kahana to come to the same conclusions. There are plenty of lessons when it comes to radical Islam and jihad and claimed caliphate land. Ask China about the caliphate of the Uyghurs. Ask Russia about the caliphate of the Chechens. Ask the United States about the caliphate of the Middle East and 9/11. Ask the British and the Soviets about the caliphate of Afghanistan. And ask the Europeans about the caliphate of Europe.